Lady Maryanne Ashford stood perfectly still among the summer roses as the Duke of Hallowin's carriage disappeared down the long gravel drive. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her parasol until her knuckles turned white. The cryptic words he left her with echoed in her mind like a puzzle, with pieces that refused to align. Inside his study, her father's hands trembled as he poured himself a third glass of brandy. He avoided her steady gaze when she entered. Golden afternoon light streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust particles that danced between them like the unspoken truths hanging in the air. "What exactly did you sell him, Father?" she asked. Her voice carried the weight of a question she never thought she would need to ask. But the portrait of her mother seemed to watch from above the mantel, with eyes that held similar questions from years past. Summer at Ashford Manor had always been Maryanne's sanctuary. The gardens bloomed with mathematical precision. The household ran with clockwork efficiency. The afternoon light bathed the drawing room in a golden glow that made even the worn furniture appear dignified. At 23, Maryanne had mastered the art of maintaining appearances despite the family's dwindling resources. Her father, Lord Ashford, had taught her that composure was the last refuge of nobility. That particular Tuesday afternoon, Maryanne was reviewing the household accounts when Simmons, their aging butler, announced an unexpected visitor. The Duke of Hallowin had arrived. Maryanne closed the ledger with practiced calm. The Duke rarely made social calls to Ashford Manor. Despite owning neighboring lands, their interactions had been limited to formal county functions, where he maintained a polite but measured distance. "Show him to the blue drawing room, Simmons. I will join him shortly," she said. When she entered, the Duke stood examining a small landscape painting. He was tall and composed, with features that spoke of quiet authority rather than conventional handsomeness. He turned and bowed with perfect form. "Lady Maryanne, forgive the intrusion," he said. "Your Grace, this is an unexpected pleasure," she replied. His smile did not quite reach his eyes. "I have been attending to some business with your father. I thought it proper to pay my respects before departing." "How considerate. I regret I was not aware of your meeting," Maryanne said carefully. "It was arranged some time ago." The Duke's gaze was steady and assessing. "Your father has been handling certain matters with admirable discretion." Something in his tone made Maryanne uneasy. "Father has always valued privacy in business affairs." "Indeed, a quality I share." He glanced at the window where summer light streamed through. "I am leaving tonight. My affairs here are concluded for the moment." "So soon? The county assembly is next week." "I will return for it. Of course, obligation demands it." He paused, then added with unexpected lightness, "Ask your father what he sold me." Maryanne stiffened. "I beg your pardon?" "I am leaving tonight." The Duke laughed, though the sound held no warmth. "Ask your father what he sold me." Before she could respond, he bowed again. "Good day." "Lady Maryanne." The moment the front door closed behind him, Maryanne went directly to her father's study. She found him standing by the window, watching the Duke's carriage depart. "What business have you conducted with the Duke of Hallowin?" she demanded. Lord Ashford turned slowly, his face carefully composed. "Merely estate matters, my dear. Nothing of consequence." He suggested otherwise. He asked me to inquire what you had sold him. Her father's composure faltered. He moved to his desk and poured himself a glass of brandy. "The Duke has an unusual sense of humor," he said weakly. It did not sound like humor. Maryanne remained standing, her hands clasped tightly before her. "What transaction has taken place that concerns me enough that I should be asking about it?" Lord Ashford sighed heavily. You know our situation has been precarious since your mother's passing. The investments, the failed crops. I am well aware of our financial difficulties. I manage the household accounts. Not all of them. He took a long sip of brandy. There are debts you do not know about. Debts that threatened everything. Your future, this house, our name. Cold understanding began to dawn in Maryanne's chest. What have you done? I have secured your future, Maryanne. The Duke has assumed our debts. In exchange for what? Her father would not meet her eyes. An arrangement, a sensible one, beneficial to all parties. What kind of arrangement? Her voice grew sharper. The Duke now holds the legal right to administer your dowry and certain decisions regarding your future establishment. Maryanne felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her feet. You sold my independence, my right to choose my own path. I protected you. Lord Ashford's voice rose. The Duke is honorable. He has no intention of forcing any match upon you. He merely required security for his investment. Investment. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. I am the collateral. It is not like that. The agreement merely gives him oversight, a formality. A formality that gives a man I barely know control over my future. Maryanne's voice remained steady, even as anger coursed through her. When did you make this arrangement? Last winter. He looked away. When things were at their worst. 6 months ago. Mine, you never thought to tell me. I was protecting you from unnecessary worry. You were protecting yourself from my objection. Maryanne moved closer to the desk. Show me the agreement. Her father hesitated, then unlocked a drawer and withdrew a document. Maryanne took it with steady hands and read the formal language that effectively placed her financial independence in the Duke's control until either her marriage or her 30th birthday. This is why he has been so distant at social gatherings, she realized aloud. He knows something I did not. The Duke is a private man. He saw no reason to advertise our arrangement. Our arrangement. Maryanne set the document down carefully. I had no part in this decision. You never needed to decide, Maryanne. That is what fathers are for. To make difficult choices so their daughters do not have to. Difficult choices that happen to benefit you most directly. She stepped back. The Duke returns next week for the assembly. Will you tell everyone then, or shall I continue in ignorance for public consumption? There is nothing to tell. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. Maryanne moved toward the door. I have been traded like livestock, and the buyer suggested I should know about it. Maryanne, please. I need time to think, Father. She left the study with her head high, though her world had tilted on its axis. In her room, Maryanne stood at the window, overlooking the summer garden she had tended so carefully. The ordered rows of roses now seemed like a mockery of the control she thought she had over her life. The Duke's parting words made perfect sense now, yet he had not been cruel. He had been honest. More honest than her own father. What she could not understand was why he had chosen to tell her at all. Knowledge once acquired cannot be unlearned, and now Maryanne Ashford knew the truth about the invisible chains that bound her future. In the week following her discovery, Maryanne moved through her days with the burden of this new understanding weighing upon her. The household continued its routines. The gardeners tended the roses, the cook prepared meals, and Maryanne managed it all with outward serenity, while inwardly examining every interaction with her father for further deceptions. Lord Ashford seemed to believe that their confrontation had settled the matter. He spoke of the upcoming county assembly as if nothing had changed, discussing which families would attend and the importance of maintaining appearances. The Harringtons will be there, he mentioned over breakfast. Their son Thomas has returned from London. How fortunate for the Harringtons, Maryanne replied evenly, understanding the implication perfectly. Thomas Harrington had once been considered a potential match for her before her father had signed away her dowry. He asked specifically if you would be attending. "And will the Duke of Hallowin be present as well?" she asked. Her father's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. "I believe so." "Then I shall have to thank him for his investment in our family." "Maryanne, please. There is no need for such talk." "Is there not? Should I pretend ignorance when he knows perfectly well what has transpired? The Duke is discreet. He will not mention our private business. Yet he mentioned it to me, Father. What does that suggest about his discretion?" Lord Ashford had no answer to that. The county assembly was held at Bellingham House, a sprawling estate owned by the magistrate, Sir William Bellingham. The gardens were in full summer bloom, providing a picturesque setting for the county's nobility to engage in their carefully choreographed social rituals. Maryanne arrived with her father, greeting acquaintances with practiced smiles that revealed nothing of her inner turmoil. She spotted the Duke almost immediately. He stood conversing with Sir William, his posture relaxed yet commanding. When their eyes met across the lawn, and he inclined his head in acknowledgement, but made no move to approach her. Throughout the afternoon, Maryanne observed how the Duke maintained a careful distance. He was unfailingly polite when circumstances brought them together, but never sought her company directly. To anyone watching, they appeared as mere acquaintances with no particular connection. The revelation came during a moment when Maryanne least expected it. She was seated with several ladies near the rose garden when Sir William approached with the Duke. "Your Grace," Sir William said expansively, "I must commend you again on assuming the Ashford obligations, a most generous gesture toward one of our oldest families." A hush fell over the small gathering. Maryanne felt every eye turned toward her, curiosity and speculation evident in their gazes, but the Duke's expression remained impassive. "You mischaracterize the situation, Sir William. It was merely a standard business arrangement, beneficial to both parties." Of course. Sir William smiled indulgently. "Still, not every man would take on such responsibilities without immediate advantage. I find long-term investments more satisfying than immediate returns." The Duke's gaze briefly met Maryanne's before he addressed the group. "If you will excuse me, ladies." As he walked away, the whispers began immediately. Maryanne maintained her composure, sipping her tea as if the exchange had been of no consequence. Inside, however, she burned with humiliation. The transaction that her father had assured her was private knowledge had clearly become subject to speculation among their neighbors later. As she walked along a garden path seeking solitude, Thomas Harrington fell into step beside her. "Lady Maryanne, you look lovely today," he said. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. How was London?" "Busy and loud as always. I found myself missing the peace of the countryside." He hesitated. "And certain of its inhabitants." Once, such attention would have pleased her. Now she wondered if he knew of her changed circumstances, and whether that knowledge influenced his sudden renewed interest. "I have heard interesting rumors," he continued, confirming her suspicions, "about your family's connection to the Duke of Hallowin." "Have you indeed?" Maryanne kept her tone neutral. "People say he has taken a particular interest in your family's affairs." "People say many things, Mr. Harrington, though not all of them warrant acknowledgement." Before he could respond, the Duke himself appeared on the path ahead. Harrington stiffened visibly. "Your Grace," he said with a stiff bow. "Mr. Harrington." The Duke nodded, then turned to Maryanne. "Lady Maryanne, your father was looking for you. I believe he wishes to depart soon." "Thank you for informing me." She curtsied, noting how carefully he maintained physical distance between them, how correctly he behaved, as if she were any young lady of his acquaintance and not someone whose future he partially controlled. As she walked away, she heard Harrington ask behind her, "Are you particularly acquainted with the Ashford family, Your Grace?" "No more than with any of my neighbors," came the Duke's measured reply. That evening, Maryanne sought out Mrs. Winters, and the housekeeper who had served Ashford Manor since before Maryanne was born. If anyone knew the truth of her family's affairs, it would be Mrs. Winters. "The master has always been protective of you," Mrs. Winters said carefully, when Maryanne questioned her about her father's decisions. "After your mother passed, he became even more so." "Protection should not require deception," Maryanne said. "He believes he is sparing you difficult choices by making them for you." Mrs. Winters folded her hands in her lap. "I remember something he said once when discussing your education. He said Maryanne never needed guidance because you naturally made the right choices, the ones he would have made for you. And now he has ensured I will not make the wrong ones by removing my ability to choose at all. I do not believe the Duke intends to exercise that control, my lady. His behavior suggests restraint." "His intentions are irrelevant," Maryanne said firmly. "The fact remains that my future was bargained away without my knowledge or consent." Mrs. Winters studied her face carefully. "What will you do now that you know?" It was the question Maryanne had been asking herself for days. "I'm not certain yet, but I will not pretend ignorance any longer. That much I know." That night, Maryanne stood at her bedroom window, watching moonlight silver the garden paths below. The Duke's behavior at the assembly had been revealing. He had neither flaunted his power nor hidden the arrangement entirely. Instead, he had corrected misconceptions and maintained a distance that protected her reputation. She could not decide if this made him honorable or merely calculating. Perhaps it was both. Perhaps he was a man who valued propriety above all else, who would never exercise the power he held, but would also never relinquish it voluntarily. As summer deepened and the heat grew more oppressive, Maryanne began to understand the true nature of her situation. What her father had called protection was in fact a subtle form of control, one that reduced her to a valuable asset rather than a person with agency. The Duke's role was more complex. Though he held legal power over her future, he seemed determined not to wield it openly. This restraint did not comfort her. A cage remained a cage, even when the door was left unlocked. 3 more invitations arrived from neighboring estates over the following weeks. Maryanne declined them all, citing household responsibilities. Her father objected to the third refusal. "The Pembrokes specifically mentioned the Duke will be attending. It would be advantageous for you to be present." "Advantageous for whom, father?" Maryanne asked, arranging flowers in a vase with precise movements. "For me or for you?" "For all of us. The Duke has shown considerable restraint and discretion. By not publicly announcing that he purchased oversight of my future, how magnanimous of him." Lord Ashford sighed deeply. "You are being unreasonable. Nothing in your daily life has changed." "Everything has changed." Maryanne set down the scissors she had been using. "I now understand that my choices were never truly mine. I was permitted independence only as long as my decisions aligned with what you wanted. That is unfair." "Is it? Tell me, father, if I had wished to marry someone without fortune or title, would you have supported my choice?" His silence was answer enough. "I thought not." She picked up her basket of cut flowers. "I will be in my room." The summer heat pressed down on Ashford Manor like a heavy blanket, and Maryanne felt equally suffocated by the invisible bonds that now defined her existence. She had discovered the truth, but truth alone could not set her free. Part 3. In the weeks that followed, Maryanne withdrew further from society. She declined invitations, avoided callers, and immersed herself in household management. If she could not control her ultimate destiny, she would at least exert authority over her daily existence. Letters began to arrive from the Duke's estate. formal correspondence addressed to her father regarding estate matters, with occasional inquiries about her health and well-being. Lord Ashford would read these aloud at breakfast, as if the Duke's polite concern somehow validated the arrangement he had made. Maryanne said nothing. She simply listened and returned to her accounts. One afternoon, while reviewing the household ledgers more carefully than usual, Maryanne discovered discrepancies that had previously escaped her notice. Expenditures that seemed unnecessary, investments that showed no returns, money flowing out with nothing coming back in. She brought her findings to her father immediately. "These withdrawals," she said, pointing to several entries. "Where have these funds gone?" Lord Ashford glanced at the ledger briefly. "Estate improvements." "What improvements? The east wing still has a leaking roof. The tenant cottages need repairs. We have reduced the household staff by 3 in the past year." "There are matters you do not understand, Maryanne." "Then explain them to me. I manage this household, yet these accounts suggest money is flowing elsewhere." Her father closed the ledger with finality. "Some investments require patience before they yield returns. Like the investment the Duke made in us?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "In me?" Lord Ashford's face hardened. "That arrangement saved this family from ruin." "At what cost? My trust? My autonomy?" "You speak as if I sold you into servitude. The Duke has made no demands, has he? Has he pressured you in any way?" "No," Maryanne admitted reluctantly. "He has been scrupulously distant." "There, you see? Your life continues as before. Except now I know the truth. I know that my future was negotiated without my knowledge. I know that the respect and independence I thought I had were merely illusions." Her father's expression softened slightly. "The Duke is a good man, Maryanne. He would never take advantage of this situation." "Then why did he enter into this arrangement at all? What benefit does he gain from controlling my dowry and future prospects?" "Security for his investment in our estate. Nothing more." But Maryanne was not convinced. Men like the Duke of Hallowin did not act without purpose. There must be something more to his interest in Ashford Manor, and perhaps in her. As her self-imposed isolation continued, Maryanne began to examine the estate's financial records more thoroughly. What she discovered alarmed her deeply. The Ashford fortune was not merely diminished, it was nearly gone. The estate was operating on credit and the goodwill of neighbors who remembered her grandfather's generosity. The most disturbing discovery came in the form of a document tucked away in her father's study. A proposal for the sale of Ashford Manor itself. The prospective buyer was unnamed, but the terms suggested someone with considerable wealth and influence. When confronted, Lord Ashford initially denied any intention to sell. Under Maryanne's steady gaze, however, his resolve crumbled. "It may become necessary," he admitted finally. "The debts are substantial. Even with the Duke's intervention, yet his assistance postponed the inevitable. It did not erase our obligations entirely." Maryanne sat down slowly, the weight of this revelation pressing upon her. "So you sold my independence for a temporary reprieve. I secured your future. Without the Duke's intervention, you would have nothing. No dowry, no home, no prospects. And with his intervention, I have a home that may still be sold, a dowry I cannot control, and prospects limited to what he deems appropriate." Maryanne's voice remained steady, despite her inner turmoil. "Tell me, Father, does the Duke know you are considering selling Ashford?" "He has been informed of the possibility." A cold realization dawned. "Is he the unnamed buyer?" Her father's silence confirmed her suspicion. "Oh, so he would own not only my future, but my ancestral home as well." Maryanne rose from her chair. "How convenient for him." "It is not like that. The Duke has been more than fair." "Fair?" Maryanne moved toward the door. He is systematically acquiring everything that matters to me while maintaining the appearance of benevolent distance. Where are you going? I need air. Outside in the garden that generations of Ashfords had tended, Maryanne confronted the reality of her situation. The Duke of Hallowin held her future in his hands, not through force or coercion, but through carefully calculated financial maneuvers that her father had willingly accepted. The protection her father believed he had secured for her was in truth a cage built of legal documents and social expectations. Unto the Duke might never explicitly exercise his power over her, but its very existence changed everything. As summer flowers bloomed around her in defiant beauty, Maryanne made a decision. She would no longer be a passive participant in her own life. If the Duke wanted control, he would discover that she was not as easily managed as her father. The portrait gallery at Ashford Manor stretched along the eastern wing, where afternoon light illuminated the faces of 7 generations of Ashfords. Maryanne often walked there when seeking clarity, finding something grounding in the steady gazes of her ancestors. Today, she studied them with new eyes. Her great-grandmother, painted in riding habit with a hunting crop, had married at 16 to secure an alliance between families. Her grandmother, depicted with a book of poetry, had abandoned her literary aspirations when her husband deemed them unsuitable. Her own mother, beautiful and serene in blue silk, had accepted an arranged match with Lord Ashford despite loving another. Generations of women who had decisions made for them, their lives shaped by the needs and desires of others. Maryanne stood before her mother's portrait, searching for signs of regret in the painted eyes. Had she ever resented the choices made on her behalf? Had she ever wished for the freedom to determine her own path? She was quite beautiful. Maryanne turned sharply. The Duke of Hallowin stood at the gallery entrance, hat in hand. She had not heard him arrive. "Your Grace," she curtsied, maintaining formality despite her surprise. "We were not expecting you." "Forgive the intrusion. But your father and I had arranged to discuss some matters, but it seems he has been called away unexpectedly." "Yes, a tenant emergency. He left word that he would return by evening." The Duke nodded, his gaze returning to the portrait. "You resemble her greatly." "So I have been told," Maryanne said, "though I hope I have inherited more than just her appearance. Her kindness, perhaps? I was told Lady Ashford was known for her compassion." Maryanne paused deliberately. "And her compliance. She never questioned the decisions made for her." The Duke studied her face carefully. "Unlike her daughter." "Indeed." Maryanne met his gaze directly. "I find I have many questions about decisions recently made regarding my future." A moment of silence stretched between them. The Duke did not pretend to misunderstand. "I wondered when this conversation would occur," he said finally. "Your father suggested you had accepted the arrangement. My father has a talent for seeing what he wishes to see. And what do you see, Lady Maryanne? A transaction conducted without my knowledge or consent, a bargain that treats me as property rather than a person." The Duke did not flinch at her directness. "The agreement was with your father, not with you. Yet it affects my life more directly than his. That is the nature of family obligations. That children are bound by the decisions of their parents until they establish their independence. And how am I to establish independence when my dowry and prospects are controlled by a man I barely know?" The Duke moved further into the gallery, stopping before a portrait of Maryanne's grandfather. "Your father approached me last winter. Ashford Manor was weeks away from being seized for unpaid debts. Your future, the future he had promised your mother he would secure, was in jeopardy. So you offered to save us. How noble." "I offered a business arrangement. The estate needed immediate capital and long-term management. I provided both. In exchange for control over my future. In exchange for oversight of investments that directly affect you. Yes. Yet your father insisted on including your dowry in the agreement to ensure it would be properly managed. And you had no objection to this addition? I saw it as a reasonable security measure given the circumstances. Maryanne moved along the gallery, putting space between them. And now you are considering purchasing Ashford Manor itself. If he was surprised by her knowledge, he did not show it. It is a possibility under discussion. How convenient. You would own my ancestral home and control my financial future. I would preserve your ancestral home rather than see it divided and sold to strangers. His voice remained calm, but Maryanne detected an edge beneath the surface. Oh, your father's management has been inconsistent at best. That does not justify treating me as part of the estate to be managed. The Duke turned to face her fully. Is that how you view this arrangement? How else should I view it? My father sold you the right to make decisions about my life without consulting me. He traded my autonomy for financial security. I have made no decisions regarding your future, Lady Maryanne. I have not interfered with your activities or imposed any restrictions on your choices. Yet you could, at any moment. The power exists whether you exercise it or not. Understanding dawned in his eyes. And that is what troubles you. The potential, not the reality. The potential changes the reality. Maryanne faced him directly. Every choice I make now exists within the framework of your authority. Every freedom I enjoy is permitted rather than inherent. The Duke was silent for a long moment. I cannot claim to understand that experience, he admitted. His honesty surprised her. Then understand this, Maryanne said, her voice steady and clear. I cannot and will not accept any personal connection between us while this arrangement exists. No friendship, no courtship, nothing beyond the most formal acquaintance. You believe I seek such a connection. I believe you acquired the right to control my future for a reason. Whether that reason is financial, personal, or something else entirely, I cannot trust it. Or you, while this imbalance of power exists. The Duke studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. And if the arrangement were dissolved? He asked quietly. That would depend on the terms of dissolution. Hypothetically speaking, if you were granted full control of your dowry and future prospects, independent of both your father's management and mine, would that satisfy your concerns? Maryanne considered his words carefully. It would address the immediate issue of control, yes, but not the issue of trust. Trust must be earned, Your Grace. It cannot be purchased or negotiated. He nodded slowly. A fair assessment. He glanced at the portrait of her mother once more. Your mother would be proud of your clarity of thought. My mother accepted the life arranged for her. I intend to choose my own path, even if that path is more difficult. Especially then, the Duke said softly. Difficulty chosen freely is preferable to ease imposed by others. Maryanne felt something shift between them. Understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of it. I will consider what you have said, Lady Maryanne. The Duke bowed. In the meantime, please inform your father that I will return tomorrow to continue our discussion. He left her standing among her ancestors, their painted eyes witnessing a confrontation none of them had dared to initiate in their own lives. As the sound of his carriage faded into the distance, Maryanne turned back to her mother's portrait. For the first time, she did not see resignation in those painted eyes. She saw possibility. Perhaps her path would be different after all.